Saidia serviette, Agnes. Saidia serviette, the nini is dirty. Or the wipes on the screen. Hi, everybody. Hope you can see me. Sorry for being late. Had to handle a small emergency for a friend. Uh, they're doing okay. They're doing okay, I hope. But we've got to get this show on the road. I hope you listened last week. I hope it was useful. Do let me know if you're there, waiting for the Three Dot Society to tell me if they're there or not. Uh, are you all there? If someone is there, just let me know. If I'm alone, just let me know. Okay, if I'm alone, how will you let me know? Yeah? Cool. Santeni Sana. Um, so good. We can start this. We've got the Three Dot Societies here. Now, last week I talked about a lot of things. I talked about um, Gideon and the need to have. Why are you scared? Why are you scared, Edna? Tell me why you're scared. Um, Now, listen. There's. Evans Choriot, I see you're still huko in politics. Ati nimesahau kumention Ruto ndio ni make point yangu relevant. Okay, let me mention him. Ruto, now is my point relevant? You know, you guys need to know there's no point to trolling me. Just debate me, man. Trolling doesn't work. I'll just smile. So anyway, moving on. Hi Njeri Kariuki, how are you? And hi Evans Cheriot. I didn't say hi to you. So listen, there's something that's bugged me for a while. And what has bugged me for a long time is why in Africa we have nations that are wealthy, big people, big population rather, big numbers of people, and we just can't seem to get it right. There's something we miss. There's you look at Nigeria and their population and their oil, and there's something they miss that don't quite get there. You look at South Africa, apartheid falls, rising nation, but now the poverty gap among the worst in the world. Now, last week I talked about the basics. If you're afraid, go home, and how you handle the word. Now, I'd just like to create a division, a river almost, which we need to cross in order to understand where we're going. And I'll tell you a story to make this point. In the year 2003, 2003, I was living in Pretoria, a place called Silverton. And on this particular day, a Jehovah Witness comes to my door. And of course, they've got a little pamphlet and they want to evangelize you. And so, me being me then and being a bit more cantankerous than I am now, um, loved a good debate because I knew Jehovah Witnesses are going to come and argue with me about the cross. Was Jesus crucified like this or like this? So they believe he was crucified like this. We believe he was crucified like that. Why it matters, I know not. And then, of course, they argue that Jesus is not the Son of God. He is a God the way you and I are called gods in the book of Psalms, but he is not the Son of God. So I was prepared for this argument. I was prepared for them to open uh, John chapter 1, verse 1, and say, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was a God, because they had an R there. And I was ready for this argument. And then this Jehovah Witness came and told me, this is 2003, and he threw me a curveball. And he said, you can't find a place that promises you will go to heaven in the entire Bible. And of course, it's true. You will find references to paradise. And if you're a Jewish scholar, you will know that paradise and heaven are two totally different things. So for a long time, I researched it. I read my Bible through and through. And I really wondered, okay, so it's true. Now, for a long time, so you can imagine 2003, almost 2016, 17, I never, 2015, thereabout, I never quite talked about that issue because to me it was a non-issue. It was a non-issue where people ended up when they died. Who cared? As long as it was not hell, who cared? Now, what changed my mind in 2015, and there's a reason why I'm starting this story here, is because I had a very interesting conversation with God. And this conversation went like this. He showed me a hotel room, white hotel room, those nice, everything is white, the sheets are white, the headboard is white, and then it's got a little framed painting, a black one on the wall just above the headboard, nice TV, nice everything. And he asked me a question. The question he asked me was, if you lived in this hotel room for a year, would you upgrade it? Would you paint its walls? Would you uh, change the TV? Would you? And the answer is, of course not. Because naturally, anything you occupy in a temporary perspective, you tend to abuse. Okay, a relationship you are in temporarily, you'll abuse. A job you are in temporarily, you'll abuse. If you're told, oh, by the way, tomorrow you're going to the States, and you've got this brilliant job waiting for you. You pumzika, you bangaiza, you call your friends to have a drink. And then, clear as a bell, said, the reason why going to heaven as an endpoint for Christianity, why it's a poisonous idea, is because the earth becomes our hotel room. And because we imagine that this world is not my home, I'm just a passerby. We imagine that we do not need to build things of permanence, things of relevance in this temporary abode. And therefore, our view as especially modern humans is quite limited to now. We are limited to the pressure of right now. We are limited to the problems of right now. And because we are limited to those problems, what we do is very interesting. So, because we live in a hotel room, all we seek from this hotel is an upgrade. You want to move from the single bed to the double bed, from the double bed to the queen bed, from the queen bed, the king bed, from the king bed to the very temporary suite, luxury suite at the top of the hotel. And that's how we live life. That even when you pray to God, it's a small upgrade you're looking for. Now, the problem I had and I have is if you look at Abraham, and Hebrews 11 is something that I don't know whether I have time to read because my time is I started late, but let me give you an example of Abraham and just allow me to talk to you. Abraham, it says in the book of Hebrews that he did not long to see a city built by hands, he longed to see a city built without hands. And I'm asking myself the question, when the heck did God even promise Abraham that? Okay, let's read it because you guys might think I'm muko pulling your legs. Let's go to the book of Hebrews. Okay, nadhani wanaitwa Wahibrania. Please let me know if you are there, man. I am. It's Uko. Oliver is not here today, so you guys are my feedback. So give me feedback. Give me feedback. So let's go to the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, the faith chapter. You know this. Uh, Hebrews 11 from around verse 14. Yeah. Yeah. So verse 10. Yeah. So um, let me start from verse 8. By faith, Abraham. Now, notice faith when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out not knowing where he went. And this is interesting because one of the things that becomes very um, interesting. Sorry. All right, good. Uh, is Abraham, number one. Thanks, Albert. Abraham, number one, received his promise from God 400 years after he was dead. Hey, bro, Sasa Hilary, right? 400 years after he was dead. Okay? So when it says he received his promise, it's an interesting analogy, but I don't want to go there. But verse 9, prompted by faith, he dwelt as a temporary resident in the land, which was designated in the promise of God, though he was like a stranger in a strange country, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, fellow heirs with him of the promise. Okay? Now, notice that this man has been promised a land, he's living in it in tents. Now, he was waiting expectantly and confidently, looking forward to the city which has fixed and firm foundations, whose architect and builder is God. Now, my question to you is, when did God promise Abraham a city? When? When did God tell Abraham, I will give you a city whose foundations are firm, whose builder is God? Where? The truth is that Abraham never had from God, from the promises we had. He was promised a child. He was promised to be the father of many nations. He was promised to inherit land. Not once did God say, I will give you a city. Now, my question to you is, where did Abraham see a city? And then, of course, you're wondering, how is it related to what I'm saying? We'll get there. I want to give you another example. There's a guy called Elijah. Okay, let's go to Elijah. Elijah is an interesting guy. Um, uh, so we're going to go to 1 Kings 18:38. 1 Kings 18:38. Okay, I'll show you something. We go back. 1 Kings chapter 18 verse 38. Now, I want you to hear something. Let me go to there. I want to go back. to show you something. First Kings 18, text says 18 verse 1. Now, after many days, the word of the Lord came to Elijah in the third year, saying, Go show yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. Now, I want you to hear something. I want you to listen carefully. What God tells Elijah. Tells Elijah, Go show yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. Okay? Now, I don't have time to read all of it. All right? Verse 7 and 8. Elijah says, It is I. Go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And he said, What sin have I committed that you deliver your servant into the hands of Ahab to be slain? As the Lord your God lives, there is no nation or kingdom where my Lord has not sent to seek you. And when they said he is not here, he took an oath from the kingdom or nation that they had not found you. And now you say, Go tell your Lord, behold, Elijah is here. And as soon as I have gone out from you, the Spirit of the Lord will carry you. I know not where. So when I come and tell Ahab and he cannot find you, he will kill me. But I, your servant, have feared and revered the Lord from my youth. Now, of course, the plural of prophets and things like that. Uh, verse 15, Elijah said, As the Lord of hosts lives, before whom I stand. Now, Elijah, 15, I want you to notice something. As the Lord of hosts lives, before whom I stand. Where is Elijah standing? In front of the captain or in front of God? Before whom I stand. I want you to note those things. I want you to note those things. What God says, where Elijah says he's standing. I will surely show myself to Ahab today. So he went to meet Ahab, so Ahab said to him, Are you he who troubles Israel? Elijah replied, I have not troubled Israel, but you have, and your father's house, for forsaking the commandments of the Lord and by following the Baals. Therefore send, now, verse 19. This is where I want you to pay close attention. Therefore send and gather to me all Israel at Mount Carmel, and the 450 prophets of Baal, and 400 prophets of the goddess Asherah, who eat at the queen Jezebel's table. So Ahab went to all the Israelites and assembled the prophets at Mount Carmel. Now, my question is, and you know the rest of the story, my question to you is, when did God tell Elijah to go call all of Israel? When? When did God tell Elijah to call fire from heaven? When did God give Elijah these extra laws? Where? Where? Why does Elijah say, for example, before God, whom I stand? Where was Elijah's perspective? Clearly, Elijah hears and sees more in God's instructions than we do. Because God does not castigate him, like many preachers have taught, that he did it of his own free will. God will not show up. But why is it that Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, so different things from what we see? Why do they see things different? And it bugged me for many years. Okay? Now, there is a saying, and I want to teach. This is where I want to start my sermon, and I don't know whether I have time. there's a thing about God. Okay. Now, I want to ask you a question. I want you to remember the guy called Moses. Now, the guy called Moses wrote Genesis, okay? He wrote he wrote Exodus. But my question is, how did he know what happened at the beginning? How did he know? How did he know? At what point did God tell him? At what point? I want to give you a series of scriptures that I want you to check out. Okay. Actually, let me give you one. Then we'll go through the different ones later. The 29 verses I wanted to show you. Should I give you the 29 verses? Someone tell me. Okay. Someone tell me whether I should give you all the 29 verses. Or I should just give you the one I want to use. Okay. Aya, niko peke yangu, so acha nijijibu. I want to show you something. Let's start Genesis 13:14. God says to Abraham after Lot was separated from him, now lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, and eastward and westward, and all that you see I will give to you. Genesis 13. All right? Genesis 15, verse 5. And he took him outside and said, now look toward the heavens and count the stars. If you are able to count them, he said to him, so shall your descendants be. This is Genesis 15, verse 5. Let's look at 1 Kings 18:43, right? He said to his servant, go up now, look towards the sea. So he went up and looked, and he said, there's nothing. And he said, go back 7 times. Look among the nations, Habakkuk 1:5. I'm pausing so that you see what is going on. Be astonished and wonder, because I'm doing something in your days, you will not believe it. Ezekiel 40, verse 4. Son of man, see with your eyes, hear with your ears, and give attention to all that I'm going to show you, for you have been brought here in order to show it to you and declare it to the house of Israel. You've been brought here to show it to you. Zechariah 5:5. And the angel who was speaking with me went out and said to me, lift up now your eyes and see what this is going forth. Sorry, this thing keeps jumping. I don't know why. Huh? Ezekiel 47, verse 6. I'm skipping some because I've got many. Son of man, have you seen this? Have you brought me back to the, as then he brought me back to the banks of the river. And he says, son of man, Ezekiel 8:12, Jeremiah 1:11, and this is where I want to teach from. There are many. There's also Jeremiah 24:3. Where it says, let me read 24:3, then I go back to 11. What do you see, Jeremiah? And I said, figs, the good figs very good, and the bad figs very bad. It cannot be eaten due to rottenness. All right. Then Amos 7:8. What do you see? Amos, and I said, a plumb line. Then the Lord said, behold, I'm about to put a plumb line in the midst of the people of Israel. I'll spare them no longer. Now, if you go through all of these verses, and thanks Hez and Agnes for sharing them. If you go through these verses, it's a mind-blowing thing. So let me go to Jeremiah 1:11. I'm just picking one of the things that I just want to debate, but I hope I'll have time one time. Now, this is Jeremiah. He's just been called, he's being commissioned. Verse 11, it says, moreover, the word of the Lord come to me, saying, Jeremiah, what do you see? And I said, I see a branch or a shoot of an almond tree, the emblem of alertness, activity, and blossoming in late winter. Then said the Lord to me, you have seen well, for I am alert and active, watching over my word to perform it. Now, guys, I just want to ask you a question, a quick one. Why would God show you something, and then after you see, tell you? As in, God is not capable of saying, oh, by the way, I'm very attentive. I don't know how you take this, but allow me to say it. Okay? God can only explain what you are capable of seeing. The revelation God will give you is purely based on your capacity to see. In other words, when God shows you a picture, your ability to see, your ability to comprehend what you see is the limit to which God is willing to reveal to you. Limit. And therefore, I submit to you that to every prophet who saw, what they saw, God therein had more meanings only limited to their capacity to see. See, Abraham, Lot lives. God tells him, lift up your eyes and see. We always assumed that he looked up and he saw stars. That's our problem. Because we remained in the dimension of revelation limited by our sight. I want to use the term we used to use in high school so you understand. You know how people used to be given an exam or text to read, and then we used to say, hawaoni ene. In other words, they're unable and incapable of comprehending the circumstance within which they find themselves. And therefore, the depth of activity, the depth of revelation, the depth of achievement is limited by what you can see. I'll give you an example. If you are doing a business and in your mind, all you can see is your 10 or so neighbors as potential customers, you will not buy stock for 100 people because your sight automatically begins to be and becomes your limit of what you can see. Okay? So one of the things you will notice about Abraham is he became a good seer. In other words, he could see beyond what the stars were showing him. So when God tells him to look at the stars, he saw a city. When God tells him to look at a land, he saw a city that's not built by hands. Now, the problem with us is we are incapable of seeing beyond our circumstance, and therefore, even our prayer life is constrained and constricted by what we can see. Let me try again. If you want to know how constricted your vision is, tell me, when was the last time you asked God for $1 billion? Or in Swahili, for 100 billion shillings? When was the last time? Have you ever? Do you dare? But that's because you've never seen it. Your mind has never conceived it. It's never happened. And, and, and this is what you do. For many of you listening to me, your dreams, your ambitions, your desires, your vision is locked up in this little box called "When I Get to Heaven." So I was sent to remove you from the box and tell you that heaven itself, paradise itself, is a temporary holding facility until you are resurrected. And when you are resurrected, you'll have to live on earth for 1,000 years. Doesn't matter which rapture theory you believe in. But for 1,000 years, you have to be on earth. So now, let us put it in perspective. If you are not able to see into the 1,000 years, then you're not alive now, because you don't know what to pack for a 1,000-year journey, do you? No, you don't. Because you cannot see. Now, here's the problem. Every person who was able to call fire from heaven, able to chase after 5 kings and conquer them, had the capacity to see. Now, Jesus came and he said something to the Pharisees that will shake you. He said, having eyes you do not see, having ears you do not hear. Yet these people were keepers of the law. So let me tell you something. Many of you are like the elder sibling, able to be righteous, able not to make any mistakes. Congratulations. But you cannot see what God is doing. And if you could see, you cannot hear when he explains it. Let me shift you a little bit. When you look at your neighborhood, look at your country, look at your continent, look at your world, what do you see? What do you see? After you've explained to God what you see, will he tell you you've seen well? Or will he tell you you've seen propaganda? When you look at your neighborhood, you look at your surroundings, look at your living room. What do you see? Do you see right now? You see this moment? And are you praying for the littlest of upgrades? There's nothing worse in this world than a king who has a small dream. Maono duni. Nothing worse. There's nothing worse than living a life where you've got small dreams and small ambitions. You find yourself unable to discipline yourself for success. I think I'm talking to myself. Yes, are you at least listening to me? Am I making sense? Someone tell me if I'm making sense. maono duni, maisha duni. Listen, verse 12. Then the Lord, I have two people at least listening to me. Then the Lord said to me, verse 12, you have seen well. Peace Ruzage, Santi, you have seen well. The problem I have is most of the time we see nonsense. Ah, man. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Dubai, the 60s and 70s was a village. I want to give you practical examples. Was a village, fishing village. Look for the pictures. Someone had sight. They saw. They saw what? They looked at sand and dust, and they saw a city, the city we see today. Abraham went to Israel, that rocky, dry place, that desert, and he said, yep, this is the promised land. Israel, that dry place, I've never seen a picture of Israel looking, like it's drained. I've never had a news story. And today there was flooding in Israel. But yet you want to get on a plane, leave rainy Nairobi, leave our lush green environment to go to Israel because someone so different. Now that's a king. That's a king. You go around Kenya, what do you see? I'm frankly tired of talking with people who see right now. I can't help you. What do you see? Do you see well? You know where Jeremiah was living? Come on. A prophet about to go to war, in trouble, sees an almond tree. Let's look at verse 13. And the word of the Lord came to me the second time, saying, what do you see? Come on. The word of the Lord came saying, what do you see? Does that make sense to you? In other words, when God speaks, you're supposed to change your vision. You're supposed to see things different. That's why the word comes. Because he cannot use you until you see. My goodness. And I said, I see a boiling pot, and the face of it is tipped away, and from the north it is mouth about to pour forth on the south. And the Lord said to me, out of the north, the evil which the prophets had foretold as the result of the national sin shall disclose itself and break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land. And behold, I will call all the tribes of the kingdoms of the north, saith the Lord, and they will come and set everyone on his throne at the entrance of the gates of Jerusalem, against all its wall and round about it, and I will utter my judgments. You understand? And it says, but you, Jeremiah, verse 17, verse 17, verse 17, but you, Jeremiah, gird up your loins and rise and tell them all that I command you. Do not be dismayed and break down at the sight of their faces, lest I confound you before them and permit you to be overcome. Oh, oh. Let me tell you something. Hmm. But you, Jeremiah. Now, let's go back. Pause. Ask yourself, why is Jeremiah the exception? I'll tell you why he's an exception. There are 12 spies who were sent to spy out the promised land. 2 came back, they had seen totally different things from what the other 10 had seen. Those 2 got into the promised land. So Jeremiah has exception because he sees. Oh. In other words, the day of trouble is exempt for the ones who can see. Can you see? Oh my. Can you see? Then he says something interesting. And I want to show you something. He says something interesting that I'd like to leave it there, then I'll answer your questions, James Nyingi. But you, Jeremiah, gird up your loins and arise and tell them all that I command you. Do not be dismayed and break down at the sight of their faces. Do not despair or break down, lest I confound you before them and permit you to be overcome. In other words, if you have confidence in what God has shown you, you cannot be overcome. If you have confidence in what God has shown you, you can't be overcome. So I'd like to quote a great prophet friend of mine. You may not like him because he's in jail now. R. Kelly said something that I hope you never forget. Said, if I can see it, then I can be it. If I can see it, I can be it. Every day in your life, God is showing you something. If you decide to see with physical eyes, okay, you're lost. Sorry, my lips get chappy when I've not eaten. Don't worry, I will eat soon. If all you see around your life is hopelessness, then God will send you manna miracles. What are manna miracles? They're miracles that maintain you around the wilderness. But if you want to get into greatness, to get into kingship, which is what this is I'm talking about. A king is vision. A king is seeing something that no one else can see. A king is the one who's able to sit and look at you in the eyes and tell you guys, you know what? You guys think I don't know where I'm going, but I've seen it. Martin Luther King said, I have seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I have seen it. My question is, what have you seen? What have you seen? Problem is you judge with your natural eyes. You know, get dismayed quickly, then God confounds you. You know what it is to be dismayed quickly? It's when you're doing a project and then, like the fishermen at night, you fish until midnight. Like, I'm tired, I'm going home. Then you asked, will you ever go back to fishing? Aye, bana. It will fish back at midnight. Me, I'm never fishing again. Yet Jesus was supposed to come in the morning, tell you to cast your net on the other side. What do you see? What do you see? I find it very interesting about my country, Kenya. I know a very wealthy man, who every time he meets me, he begs me for a chance to invest in Kenya. I like, you guys, you've got no idea what you want. You're crazy. Kenya is big. I look at him and I'm thinking, a billionaire? Kenya? Now that brings me to James Nyingi's question. God told you go and you find yourself in Nanyuki. Question, what did you see? James, you're in the spirit. So when I went to Nanyuki, been there twice now. This is what I saw. I saw a place that had many of us, typical Kenyans. And when we were there, we didn't see opportunity. We didn't think much of Nanyuki as a town. Then a community moved in. Some typical Kenyans from Nairobi, others the British ex-army, and they saw something different. They got together as a community and changed Nanyuki. I used to think it's army money that changed Nanyuki, but when I went there, I realized that there was something called a different vision, a different site. The site where one of the greatest lodges is has an interesting story. This is the story. That this guy came and is invited to this ranch, huge ranch, and nothing is being done. And the owner is like, this place is too rocky, it costs too much money. I can't do any agriculture on it. And the guy looked and he said, you can build a hotel here. Same piece of land, different eyes. The question really isn't the problem that you're facing. That's not really the question. The question is, what do you see? What do you see? What do you see? In the day of trouble, you must be the but. You must be the one God says, but for you, so and so. Listen, up to this point, Jeremiah had done nothing. But listen to what God says. Verse 18, and I'll stop there at 18 and 19. Jeremiah had done nothing. It's Jeremiah 1. He'd done nothing except see and see well. Except see and see well. So what privileges does he get for seeing and seeing well? Verse 18, for behold, I have made you this day a fortified city, and an iron pillar, and burns walls against the whole land, against the successive kings of Judah, against its princes, against its priests, and against the people of the land, giving you divine strength, which no hostile power can overcome. And they shall fight against you, but they shall not prevail against you. For I'm with you, says the Lord, to deliver you. What do you see? What do you see? If you look at Kenya and you see the same thing as everybody sees, if you look at your family and you see the same thing as everybody sees, if you look at your wife and children and you see the same thing you saw last week, you are the one who the enemies from the north are coming to overcome. But if you see different, then you're about to start ruling. That's my set, guys. Do I need to say more? See you guys next week. Oh, one more thing. If you're my friend and you've not bought my book, Yani, buy my book. Bless you guys. James, I hope your question is answered. Okay? Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next week. Oh, we are planning to improve this set. So good things come.